So essentially, it's kind of like a boggart from Harry Potter, and the grown-ups are basically muggles trying to take down a boggart. I think that's a fair summary of the film. Hello, it's me, James. I'm back, and I'm doing another film review for you today. If you've been following this channel, then thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Please keep leaving comments about things you want me to review and I'll go and do it. For those of you who maybe don't know me or what I do film reviews, I do TV show reviews, Netflix show reviews, and stage reviews whenever I go and see anything on stage. And I've decided that for every 5th video I do, I'm gonna do something a little bit different that's not related to film reviews or anything like that. I'll think of something exciting, I hope. So last night I went to go and see It Chapter 2. It probably wasn't the best idea to go by myself because although I love horror films, I do jump at them all the time. I was quite jealous of the two girls sat next to me because they had each other, and during the scary bits they were just huddled together under this giant blanket thing. I was just sat there by myself with a bag of sherbet lemons to hold on to. The film is a long one. I'm not gonna lie. 2 hours 49 minutes I think, which I think is verging on Titanic level. Titanic is about 3 hours or just over 3 hours. So for a horror film to be almost as long as Titanic, that's a lot to get through. Just a heads up, I'm not gonna give any spoilers or anything like that. I'm just gonna talk about tiny plot things that I maybe did and didn't like, but nothing that would give anything away. I'll talk about the setting, the acting, the whole visual spectacle of the film, what I thought of it overall, and then give it a rating. As most of you already know, It is based on a book that's about that thick. It Chapter 2 begins 27 years after the end of the first film. Essentially, It is the true horror of the film. It encompasses basically the whole force of evil, and it takes on many different forms, and Pennywise the dancing clown is its favourite form to take on. So every 27 years, It comes out of the sewers and has its next feeding cycle. It basically exploits people's individual fears, and it takes on that form of what they fear the most. So essentially, it's kind of like a boggart from Harry Potter, and the grown-ups are basically muggles trying to take down a boggart. I think that's a fair summary of the film. The film starts by re-showing the final scene of the first film, of all the kids making a blood pact, vowing to return to Derry, where it's set, in 27 years' time, when It returns. But in this film, the kid losers from the first film are now basically adult losers. Let's just take a moment to look at the cast and look at the adults playing the kids and how accurate they are. So you've got James McAvoy, who plays Bill, and he is the brother of Georgie from the first film, who went missing, and he's now basically a best-selling author. And then you've got Jessica Chastain playing the older version of Beverly. Now her character is now well off, she's got a good job and some good money, but she's getting domestically abused by her husband, similar to that of her dad in the first film, which is a really big shame, because her character is such a strong woman. Bill Hader is playing an older version of Richie, who is now a stand-up comic and vomits whenever he gets anxiety. James Ransone plays Eddie, who is still a risk-averse hypochondriac. Andy Bean plays the older version of Stanley, who is the same as he was when he was younger, but now just a troubled accountant. Jay Ryan plays Ben, the new kid, the little fat kid in the first film, and he's not fat anymore. He's basically turned into Thor overnight, and he's now a wealthy architect, so he's got a great job, he looks great, he's got great body, he's just got it all really, and it's a bit annoying. Asaya Mustafa plays the older version of Mike, and Mike is still living in Derry at the moment, and he hasn't really done much with his life. I think he's been preparing for It's return. Teach Grant plays the older version of Henry Bowers, the bully, who is now in a psychiatric ward, which is quite satisfying because he was such an arsehole in the first film. And Bill Skarsgård is still playing Pennywise, and he is just terrific at it. But look at the casting. Not only do they look like believable adult versions of the losers, but also the performances that they do. They manage to evoke the same characteristics, the same habits, the same spirits that the kids did, so it's really just a fantastically acted piece. You have no doubt that you're watching the same characters, and I think it gives it a perfect linear structure. So after the first scene, we go to a fun fair, and that's kind of where you see Pennywise come about for the first time in the film. Mike has been waiting for his return, and he basically calls up each of the individual losers and gets them to come together once and for all to defeat It. As the film goes on, the loser children, who are now loser adults, but they're not because they're pretty cool, they all have an individual encounter with It. Now on to the scary parts of the film. There are some really jumpy moments in there. You constantly looking over the shoulder of the character to see what's going to happen. However, undercutting the horror is a lot of comedy, and the script is actually really, really well done. There is a scene at a Chinese restaurant when they're all eating dinner together, and given the fact that they haven't seen each other in about 27 years, the jokes they tell and the way they take the mick out of each other, it just feels really natural. I think the film is really successful at balancing horror and comedy on quite a fine razor blade, so you get the tension building up in the horror, and then you get a lot of relief in the comedy. In terms of the setting, it is dank. It feels damp and it feels wet and it feels spooky, and all of the graphic design and the visual effects and the cinematography, it is all fantastic. It's kind of reminiscent of Stranger Things, which I really love. Overall, yeah, I would say I really like the film. I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite horror films. I think it was just a bit too long. I think half an hour could have really been cut, and it just kind of slowed the pace down a little bit and made you think you were watching a big TV drama rather than a thriller horror movie. If you're not into horror, don't go and see it. You're not going to enjoy it, and you're probably going to jump and wet yourself. I'm going to give it overall about 75%. Thank you for watching this video and getting through to the end. I would really appreciate it if you could leave some more comments about things you might want me to review. And then I've got one more video to go, and then it'll be my 5th video after that, and it'll be something exciting like I promised. Don't forget to subscribe and also follow my Instagram account, which is /James Calloway _, and then my Twitter account, which is letter J Calloway _. Thank you, and see you next time for my next review.